Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me. Today we are talking about 8 culprits that cause weight loss resistance. And this video is going to be for the ladies that feel like they're already doing everything right. So you're eating healthy foods, you're exercising regularly, you're watching your portions, maybe you're following a specific diet, whatever it may be, and you are not losing weight and you don't understand why. Well, tune in because we're going to be going over the top 8 causes or reasons that might be causing your weight loss resistance. But first, if you are brand new to these videos or to my group, my name is Haley and I am a perimenopause weight loss coach. I also happen to coach women postmenopause, but mainly perimenopause. And I have personally used both nutrition and lifestyle strategies to heal a lot of hormonal balances that I suffered with in my 30s. I'm now 46 and I can comfortably say that I look and feel way better than I did in my 20s and my 30s because I have learned how to take care of myself. And now I help hundreds of women all around the world now, which is really exciting. And I help them to really take charge of their changing body. And I teach them how to lose weight, especially like stubborn belly fat. And I teach them how to improve their energy and create vibrant life and just set themselves up for a really easy transition through menopause. So just before we dive in, if you're looking for strategies that were uniquely designed for women over the age of 35, and if you're sick and tired of gaining weight, or you're tired all the time, or maybe again, you feel like you're doing everything right and you're not getting results and you have 15 to 25 pounds to lose, then definitely feel free to reach out to me to see if I can help. In fact, next week, I've got a couple of free coaching spots available, probably like 3 or 4. So you can definitely reach out and hop on a call with me and we can come up with a little bit of an action plan for you. But enough about that. Let's dive in here. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. And this is a story of how I came to realize that weight loss is about way more than calories in, calories out. And this was when I was just starting my career in nutrition coaching. And one of my very first clients was a young woman. She was in her sort of late teens, early 20s, right? So in a period of life when weight loss should be pretty easy. And she came to me because she had something called hypothyroidism, which is the thyroid is a hormone that regulates your metabolism, and hypothyroidism is when your metabolism is essentially slow. And she came to me wanting me to help her lose weight because one of the signs and symptoms of hypothyroidism is that you start to gain weight unexpectedly, and it's really challenging to get off. And that was, again, back in the day when I really didn't have much training in hormones and weight loss resistance. And so, I gave her all the tools that I had as a precision nutrition coach, and I taught her like my basic habits. So like the protein and the healthy fats and the smart carbs and the vegetables, and created a slight caloric deficit. And trust me, like, she was a very compliant client. Like, she did everything. She was meal planning, like she was doing it all. And on top of that, she was weight training at the gym 3 times a week. She was a basketball player. Nothing. She could not lose the weight. And I never was able to help this woman. I worked with her for 3 months, couldn't lose a pound. And that's what kind of really got me interested in trying to figure out like what's going on here. And this is what started my passion for really understanding metabolism and hormones and gut health and all these other things, all these other pieces of the puzzle that make weight loss more complicated than just eat less food. And it drives me crazy when I'm on Instagram or I'm following like fit pros or people on social media, and they say weight loss is simple, just eat less food. Or the reason you're not losing weight is because you're not actually in a caloric deficit. And it drives me nuts because I know I work with women who are so compliant and so consistent, and they still can't lose weight. So I want to dive into it today, but I wanted to start with that because if that is you, and if this is what you're reading, I want you to know that it is not your fault. It's not like, and I hate that when it's like, put the blame on the person. It is not your fault. There definitely is some weight loss, some things that can make it very, very challenging, even when you're super consistent. Now, of course, you know, the first things first is we do have to worry about sort of like the big rocks of nutrition, right? So, you know, if you're not following certain very basic principles, then don't worry about weight loss resistance. Start there. And the basic principles, the biggest ones that I have is number one, you do have to be in a caloric deficit. It's not the be all end all of weight loss, but it is a piece of the puzzle. So you have to make sure you're in a caloric deficit. You've got to make sure that you're getting protein with all of your meals. You've got to make sure that you're prioritizing vegetables. You need to make sure that the rest of your calories, you're always prioritizing protein and vegetables. The rest of your calories, you're going to get them from healthy fats and from smart carbs. And you need to be exercising regularly, right? So you definitely need to do that. Now, if you're not doing that, start there. But if you're already doing that, let's dive into the top 8 sort of reasons or culprits that might be causing weight loss resistance. And I don't have time to go in depth into what to do about each and every one of them. I'll give you like a general idea, and we can definitely dive into these 8 different topics at another time, but let's just kind of go through them. So the number one thing is hormonal. I've got my notes, so I'm going to be sometimes referring to them. But number one is hormonal imbalances. And I've said this before. I've said it. I will say it again. As I've just said, calories matter, but you also need to take care of your hormones. And if your hormones are out of whack, you're going to struggle with weight loss, even if you're following a 1,200 calorie diet. And by hormonal imbalances, I mean, there's so many different things that can happen. There's so many different imbalances that can happen, but sort of some of the more common ones that I see in women would be insulin resistance, low leptin, leptin resistance, hypothyroidism, HPA axis dysfunction, also known as adrenal fatigue. What else? Estrogen dominance is another big one. Low testosterone is another one. These are all different imbalances that just make it a little bit more challenging. So what do you do about it? So I think the main thing here is to understand that, again, weight loss is more complex than calories in, calories out. And what may have worked for you when you were 30 might not work anymore now that you're in your 40s, 50s, and maybe potentially 60s, because I know we have a wide variety of women in this group. And I think what we have to understand is that something that I realized long ago is that our nutrition choices and our lifestyle choices catch up to us. So if you were making poor nutrition choices in your 20s and in your 30s and potentially in your early 40s, they're going to catch up to us. And those choices have an impact on our body, on our hormones, on our metabolism, on our gut health, on the efficiency of our body. And all of those things can make weight loss a little bit more challenging. And so we can't necessarily just jump on the next fad diet. We need to start thinking about how we can support our metabolism and our hormones and what possible impact we had on our metabolism and our hormones as we're trying to lose weight. And again, here, there's so many things that we can do, and it would take me like 2 hours to kind of really dive into this, but you know, making sure that we're ditching sugar and processed foods and eating whole foods. Here are just some basic steps. Making sure that protein is your top priority and that you're choosing quality over quantity. And by quality, I mean organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised, hormone-free. Yes, I know it's annoying, but it is important at this stage in our life. Figuring out your unique tolerance for carbohydrates and how insulin resistant you are at the moment. Minimizing foods that can have a negative impact on your hormones and on inflammation. alcohol, coffee, dairy, gluten. These are all possible foods that can have a negative impact. And so you need to figure out whether you tolerate them or not. Making sure that you're getting plenty of fiber, because fiber is a detoxifier in the body, and it's going to help to get rid of any excess hormones that are floating around in your body, right? So simple steps like that. But most importantly is that, if you are going to go on some kind of weight loss plan, I would urge you to find a plan that was created for you as a woman, and for you as a woman over the age of 40. Find a coach that understands the hormonal landscape and the metabolic landscape that you're currently in, because that will have a huge impact on your ability to get results. Now, of course, I would say choose me, but it doesn't matter who you choose. Just choose someone who understands what you're going through, okay? So that's number one. The second culprit, I know this is not going to be super popular with some of you, but conventional cardio, okay? So for years, we think of conventional cardio as like the most efficient fat burning exercise because that's what's been sort of promoted or marketed. And so by conventional cardio, I'm talking about like jogging, elliptical machines, Stairmasters, step classes, aerobics, Zumba, all that kind of stuff. I'm sorry if that's what you're doing right now. It's not that that kind of stuff is bad for you. Conventional cardio is great for your heart. It's great for your cardiovascular capacity. It is not the best strategy when it comes to fat loss. And so if you're directing all of your attention and all of your very limited time purely to that type of conventional cardio, that can be getting in the way of your success. And there's a couple of reasons why it might be getting in the way. Number one is that it just has a very small effect on body fat. It's just the way it is. But more importantly, conventional cardio can actually break down muscle mass. And muscle mass is your most metabolically active tissue. This is what is going to drive your metabolic rate and allow you to get away with eating more calories. You want to be protecting lean muscle mass at all cost. That's number two. Number three, and this is the most important one. For most women, not all, but for most women, conventional cardio drives hunger. Conventional cardio drives hunger, which basically just means that for most women, you feel hungrier, you have more appetite, and a lot of women overcompensate and they think that they're burning more calories than they actually are, and they end up eating more calories than they actually need, and so they're just not losing weight for that reason. So what to do? So what I would do is I would swap out the conventional cardio and replace it with HIIT, which is, or I would replace it with, I would replace it, sorry, I'm just grabbing something here, with longer bouts of lower intensity cardio. I gotta plug you guys in while I'm here. So basically walking is what it boils down to, like nice, slow walks. And one of the reasons why I like those two forms of cardio more is, so walking is great because it, number one, it puts you in that fat burning zone, which you'll see that on the elliptical, the fat burning zone. It's when you're not actually out of breath. That is when you're doing the right form of exercise for your body to go after fat as a source of energy, because it doesn't need to work as hard, and it's a lot harder to turn fat into energy, but it's also what the body prefers for endurance. So long walks is going to help you get in that fat burning zone. It's also going to help you to lower stress, and therefore the hormone cortisol that the body produces because of stress, which also happens to be a fat storing hormone, especially around the belly. Okay, so that's why I really love walking. The other form of cardio that I prefer is, again, HIIT, or high intensity interval training, which is where you do like short bursts of like super intensity, and then longer chunks of like lower intensity. Why I prefer that one? So number one, HIIT training is going to create something called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, which basically just means that while you might be burning less calories during that specific 20 to 30 minutes that you're doing your cardio, you may be burning more calories for the next 24 to 48 hours. So in that sense, it's going to be better for your fat burning potential. It's also going to help you to build muscle because it's more intense, and it's almost like you're recruiting muscle the same way as you would be doing when you're doing resistance training. So swap it out. Keep it short. You don't want to add too much stress on the body, but I would prefer that over just like if you're just focusing on conventional cardio, maybe think of something else. And of course, strength training. Okay. Number 3. Now this is a biggie. I'm not going to dive into it too much here, but undiagnosed hypothyroidism. It is one of the hormonal balances that I talked about in number 1, but I want to kind of pinpoint this one because the thyroid, as I said, it is like the master of your metabolism. And there are 2 hormones, specifically T3 and T4, that basically determine the rate of your metabolism. You can think of them like, if you think of your metabolism as a car, T4 and T3, they're like pushing on the pedal. They're like pushing on the pedal to get more gas. The more gas we've got, the more our metabolism is revving. Hypothyroidism is when your body is not producing enough T3 or enough T4, and it just naturally slows down your metabolism. And so because of that, it's really easy to be in a caloric excess because your metabolism just isn't expending as much energy. And here's a couple of interesting facts. So number 1 in 9 women have hypothyroidism. And number 2, as we go through perimenopause, it is a time of our life where we can trigger hypothyroidism. If we're kind of like on the edge of hypothyroidism, perimenopause can be sort of like the little push that kind of wreaks havoc on the thyroid. So if you are experiencing fatigue or low energy or dry hair or dry skin or constipation or unexplained weight loss or unexplained weight gain or difficulty losing weight, or if you're cold all the time, these are all potentially signs of hypothyroidism. And I would definitely talk to your doctor about testing that if you are struggling to lose weight, because again, 1 in 9 women have hypothyroidism, and it's a really common hormonal imbalance and probably a really good starting point if you think hormones are to blame. Okay, so that's number 3. Number 4, everybody's most favorite topic, stress. So stress, it all boils down to cortisol, or the stress hormone that causes weight loss resistance, and it does that for a couple of reasons. So number 1, when we're having more cortisol because we're super stressed out, we're going to be craving carbs a lot more than usual. But more importantly than that, cortisol, one of the main roles of cortisol is to raise our blood glucose levels. And when we raise blood glucose levels, we also raise insulin, which also happens to be a fat storing hormone. So stress just makes it really hard for the body to release stored energy, because it's always in sort of panic mode and it's hanging on to everything that it can. And it also makes it hard to lose belly fat in particular, because as I was saying before, cortisol specifically drives weight gain around the belly, because that's where we have most of our cortisol receptors. So getting your stress under control is super important. Now, I know you're probably thinking, oh my God, Haley, obviously, wouldn't it be nice not to have any stress in my life? And I know that this is like such a hard, it's kind of like the elephant in the room, like no woman wants to deal with it, including most of the women in my program. It's the one thing that I always have to be like, don't forget about stress management. They'll eat right, they'll do the exercise, but when it's like the stress management part, for some reason, this is the thing that women don't prioritize, and I think it's because they just don't understand what kind of an impact it can have. So a couple of like just starting points of how to manage your stress. The first thing, if you can just do one thing, it is learn how to say no. Learn how to say no, because women, we are the caregivers, we are people pleaser. Oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time today. People pleasers. We're overachievers. We're super moms, or we're super grandmothers, whatever, like nannies or grannies or whatever your code name is for grandmother. And we have to stop being super moms, and we have to stop being super grannies, because we're taking on too much, and that's a stressor in our life. And so your new mantra has to be say yes to less. Say yes to less, have less in your life. So that's like one of the things. Another thing is just, and this is what I teach my clients inside my program, is to make time for rest and relaxation. You have to purposely chase relaxation. You have to purposely chase self-care and rest and recovery and anything that you find relaxing. This can be like, it's such a game changer. And I know that it's really hard for women to recognize the importance of this, because most women want to focus on exercise and nutrition, but I'm telling you, this is one of the big culprits. Big culprits, because it really does mess with your hormones. Also triggers inflammation, which is on my list later on. Okay, number 5. This is one you may not know about. I know some of the women in my program, when I tell them this, they're always a little bit surprised, but prescription medications. So certain medications, they just cause weight loss resistance, or weight gain, or water retention, or various things, depending on the medication. And so it can be hard to lose weight if you're on these medications. And some of the sort of chief offenders would be birth control pills, which are often prescribed to women in perimenopause when they start to complain about signs and symptoms. They're given birth control pills. Antidepressants, also often given to women in perimenopause when they start to complain about their symptoms. Steroids, as well as angiotensin receptor blockers, which is a fancy word for any kind of meds that dilate your blood vessels. So usually given to women who have, for instance, high blood pressure. Now, super important. I am not saying to stop taking your medications, okay? I am not saying to stop taking your medications. If your doctors put you on them, there's a good reason. But what you can do is go and talk to your doctor. Tell your doctor that you are in the process of trying to lose weight, and that you are, explain what you're doing. Tell that doctor that you're noticing weight loss resistance. Ask whether or not the medication that you're on typically is associated with weight gain or weight loss resistance, and find out if there is another option. That is the best you can do. Again, I'm not saying to stop taking your meds. All right, so that's number 5. Number 6, poor sleep. This is another one of the culprits that make weight loss resistant, or that cause weight loss resistance. Research shows women who get less than 7 hours of sleep eat more calories. That's what it boils down to. And there are a couple of reasons that this is happening. It's affecting some of the hormones that regulate our ability to store energy, burn energy, or just like what happens in our brain that causes cravings and appetite. So ghrelin, leptin, insulin, those are the top 3 hormones that are affected by poor sleep. And they all play a really important role in our ability to lose weight. So making sure that you get good sleep, that you prioritize sleep. And I know you might be thinking, okay, that's great, Haley, but I can't sleep. I have insomnia. I have hot flashes. I have night sweats, whatever it may be. I totally get that. And one thing to recognize is that, yes, you cannot control sleep. You cannot will yourself to sleep. You can't get in bed and be like, body, go to sleep. All you can control is the daily actions and the daily behaviors that you do during the day that have an impact on your sleep. And that starts with what you do when you wake up in the morning to what you do 1 hour before bed. Here are my top 10 tips, okay? Number 1, get sunlight as soon as you can when you wake up, because you want to set those circadian rhythms and you want to turn on the hormones that are supposed to go up early in the day so that they naturally come down later in the day. So sunlight in your eyes as early as possible. When I used to have insomnia, I actually purchased this little light box, and I would sit down for my breakfast and I would have it in front of me, and it just mimics sunlight. And that was just one of the techniques that I used. Decide on a bedtime and stick to it. Adults need a bedtime just as much as kids do. Ideally, I'd like it to be before 10 p.m. Start to plan for bed 1 hour before bed. You need to wind down the same way as your kids when they were babies needed to wind down. You can't go from on scrolling social media, watching Netflix to falling asleep. There needs to be a wind down period. Limit your caffeine. I mean, you know this already, but I mean, so many women, because they're so tired, they're still drinking caffeine at 3, 4, 5 p.m. Definitely cut it out before 12. If you're suffering from insomnia, go decaf. It's going to be hard for a couple of days. I make all of my clients get rid of caffeine, and they're all like, oh my God, this is going to be so hard. Most of them, after 30 days, choose not to reincorporate it because they feel that much better. I'm telling you, I know it's hard, but no more caffeine. Do a brain dump before you go to bed. That's where you basically just write down anything that you may be thinking about in the middle of the night, your to-do list essentially, because your brain is always trying to protect you. And so if you have a to-do list, your brain's going to be constantly thinking about that to-do list. If you write it down, your brain's like, okay, it's all right. I don't have to remind her all night long. It's safe. It's on a piece of paper. It's stupid, but it works. No electronics before bed. 30, 60 minutes ideally, but definitely 30 minutes, because the blue light in your electronics basically tells your brain that it is still daytime and your body will not produce melatonin, which is the hormone that you need to fall asleep. You got to get rid of the electronics. Create a sleep hygiene ritual that's nice and relaxing. So in that hour leading up, if you can't watch TV, what are you going to be doing? Well, you can be sipping on tea, you can take a hot bath, you can do some meditation, you could do some yin yoga, whatever it may be, some kind of relaxing routine. Keep your room dark and cool. Like everything should be like black out as much as possible. I even wear like the iPad or the eye patch or whatever in the middle of the summer especially, and take an Epsom salt bath because it's full of magnesium and that will help you sleep. All right, number 7, we're almost at the end here. The 7th culprit is inflammation and food sensitivities in particular. So I'm going to assume that, well, I'm not going to assume. Step number 1 is we have to eliminate inflammatory foods in our diet. And so this is like sugar and starch and alcohol and vegetable oils like peanut oil or canola oil or any of those inflammatory oils. We want to get rid of the inflammatory foods and we want to prioritize anti-inflammatory foods like fruits and veggies and nuts and seeds and omega-3s like salmon or whatever it may be. We can talk about that another day, but first of all, that's step number 1. But you might still have inflammation even if you're already eating like a very anti-inflammatory diet because of food sensitivities. So if you have food sensitivities, what happens is that every time you eat those foods, even if they're considered healthy by sort of general standards, what can happen is that for you and your body, they are not healthy and they're making their way into your bloodstream, and to your body, they're perceived as toxins. So your body protects you by triggering like an assault against them. And this creates chronic inflammation. When we are inflamed, it is much harder to lose weight because inflammation causes insulin resistance and leptin resistance, which are 2 of the hormonal imbalances that I talked about in point number 1. So we really want to make sure that we're reducing inflammation if we want to lose weight. An inflamed body, you're going to struggle with weight loss. So what to do about it? So what I recommend doing and what I have done and what I do with my clients is an elimination diet where you basically eliminate the main culprits for about 3 weeks. This is not for the rest of your life. This is like a very short-term period. And what it allows you to do, number 1, it allows your gut to heal. And number 2, it allows you to kind of pinpoint exactly what foods are possibly causing inflammation that you may need to get rid of for a little bit longer of a period of time, like maybe 6 months, if they are triggering inflammation in your body. So in my program, what I do is I call it the Happy Hormone Hormones, Elimination Diet. And some of the foods that I eliminate, again, the main culprits, dairy, gluten, grains, beans, those are kind of the top 4 food sensitivities that I eliminate, and then I reintroduce them, and I get my clients to really pay attention to how their body is responding. And for a lot of my clients, when they finish this elimination diet, they report that they're less bloated, they have less brain fog, because we can get inflamed in our brain, right? Like brain fog is when like you can't think straight and your memory's poor and you can't remember why you walked into the kitchen, whatever it may be. So less brain fog, less joint pain, less bloating, so just less overall inflammation. So that's number 7. And then number 8, this is the final one that I want to talk about, which I say it's right foods, wrong macros. And so I think what is also important to understand is that not all calories are created equal, right? In the sense that different calories from different foods will have a different effect on our body, and macros have a different effect on our body. And by macros, I'm talking about macronutrients, so proteins, fats, carbs, okay? So you could potentially be eating all of the right foods, right? So maybe you're eating like dense protein, maybe you're eating fruit and vegetables, and you're choosing whole fiber carbs, and you're choosing healthy fats. So you're eating all of the right foods, but maybe your macronutrient ratios are off. And because they're off, they're having an impact on your metabolism and on your hormones and on your ability to burn fat. And there are kind of like different sort of macronutrient splits that women can do, which will go from say low fat, high carb, moderate protein, all the way down to low carb, high fat, moderate protein. There's lots of different ways that you can play around with your macros. But if you're eating the right foods and you're not getting results, it could potentially just be that your macros are off and that there's a better macronutrient split that would work better for your body. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I have a preference for a low carb, moderate fat, moderate protein approach for my clients. I feel like this is an approach that works really well for women our age. And basically it boils down to the fact that we just can't tolerate carbs the way that we used to. And that's because of changes in our estrogen levels and changes in our insulin, and having more insulin resistance. Now, this is not going to be popular, and I don't want to offend anyone here, but one thing to consider. What I find does not always work well, and I'm not going to do a general statement because I don't believe that, there's one way of doing anything, but for women out there that are trying to do more of a plant-based approach, good on ya. I totally get why you're doing that. But what happens with a more plant-based approach, oftentimes just based on the foods that can be consumed, is it ends up being higher in carbs, lower in fat, lower in protein. In my experience, that macronutrient split does not work as well for women our age. So you may want to invest a little bit more time into figuring out how to switch up your macros. And I'm not saying that you all have to become like mega meat eaters. You can still do it on a plant-based approach, or maybe you want to play around and see if something like pescatarian would work better for you, or whatever it may be, right? You've got to do with what works for you, but maybe playing around with your macros a little bit to see if that is what is having an impact on your ability to lose weight. And really what it boils down to is just, again, it's making sure you have enough protein to support lean muscle mass, and making sure that your ratio of carbohydrates to fats is in a position where it's working with your unique tolerance for carbohydrates and not driving insulin resistance. That's what it boils down to. So those are the 8 tips, or the 8 culprits that may be causing weight loss resistance. Now, you might be like, well, where do I start, Haley? Well, you've got to kind of start taking them one by one, go through this again, and just be like, okay, maybe that one, or reach out to me if this is something that you're struggling with. Reach out to me. Let's have a chat. Let's see if we can pinpoint what might be going on. Yeah, but I do want you to understand that if you are feeling frustrated, you don't have to go down to 900 calories. Because I think that's what a lot of women do when they're not getting the results that they want. They just like keep cutting and cutting and cutting the calories. And oftentimes it's not the calories, it's something else. It's something in your body that's just kind of you need healing. Sometimes we need to heal the body before we can see the weight loss. I guess that's what it boils down to. So there you have it, lady. If you found this video useful, do me a favor and please comment below and let me know that you found it useful. And if you would like to hear more about the program, I noticed Angela said she wanted to learn more. Definitely reach out to me. I can tell you a little bit more about it. You can tell me a little bit more about you. We can see if we're a good fit for working together. We can schedule a strategy session to kind of connect, talk about what's going on in your life, come up with an action plan, and then potentially talk about what it looks like to work with me as your coach. And that is it for today. Tomorrow, I am taking my daughter shopping for her first day back to school, kindergarten. Really exciting. So we will not be live tomorrow. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.